Oof, this is a harsh one. So, borderline personality disorder, identify and run away? Question mark.
Well, the harsh reality of mental illness, and I have lots of experience with this in my family. My mother was a psychotic schizophrenic, and so she literally, when she was not on her medication, she saw shit that was not there. And typically, borderline people that have BPD, borderline personality disorder, it is treatable. But the question is, it's just like exercising or working out or taking care of yourself. If somebody has an illness and they don't do anything about it, or maybe they're on medication and they take their medication in an irregular way, it shows that they're not disciplined. And so somebody that's not disciplined is not dealing with their shortcomings, their flaws, their faults, and you want a competent human being. A competent human being is going to say, hey, this part about me is screwed up. I got to take this medication, or I had to do this therapy, or whatever it happens to be. So the most important thing is that person dealing with their mental illness in a mature, adult, and disciplined way? And if the answer is yes, give them the opportunity and see how they react. If there's somebody that goes on and off medication all the time, I had a girlfriend that was on antidepressants. We were dating for 6 months before I even knew she was on those. And then she took herself off of them because she was so happy in our relationship. And man, within 2 weeks, she became a different person. It became extremely difficult to deal with her and communicate with her. She's being grumpy, she wasn't happy, she was miserable. I go, because I'm mostly an upbeat person and I like to goof around. I go, she'd be down, on our bed on her computer, and I get done with work or what I was doing, come over and lay next to her. I was like, hey, baby, what are you doing? And she's like, what do you want? I'm busy. I'm studying. And whether it was me or her son, that was the way she was. And, your girl does that to you enough, eventually you go, wow, I'm going to stay away from that bitch. She's not in a good mood. Because you can use humor and playfulness, but if she's determined to be unhappy and she's not on her meds properly, it can be difficult. And the reality is, with most mental illness, I know at least with my mother, psychotic schizophrenia, as she got older, the mental illness became worse. And she would not take her medication. When she was off her medication, she was literally out of her mind to the point where she was dangerous to be around. And so if the person manages it and is disciplined and is honest and open about it and they take care of themselves, I'd say give them the opportunity. If they don't, then I would not get involved.
No, I totally agree. And it's something
Because let
that,
me finish that thought though, because it's not your job to fix or to save somebody.
yeah.
Like Jim Rohn said, I'll take care of me for you, and you take care of you for me. And if you got somebody that's got an illness that they're not dealing with, and they're not disciplined about, it's not your job to fix or to save them. You want a happy, whole, complete person. Somebody ready, willing, able, and open to having a good, healthy relationship. And they take care of themselves for you, and you take care of yourself for them.
No, yeah, and I totally agree with that. But it's also at the same time, you have to keep in mind that it's not something that a lot of people ask for. It's fortunately something that they have to deal with. And also, I know a lot of people, unfortunately, especially with BPD or even any other mental illness such as bipolar disorder or depression, a lot of people often get discriminated, which is kind of sad. Like I have friends who have mental illness. I have a friend who has obsessive compulsive disorder, another friend who's bipolar, and when they reveal that they have that, a lot of people get very discriminatory over it, and I think it's ridiculous. And it's like you said, as long as you learn how to take care of yourself and you're very disciplined about it, definitely give that person the benefit of the doubt. They're trying their best. They're trying their best to live like a functional human being. You should not have to be superficial or disregard them just because of that. At least they're trying.
You got
So
to
that's what matters.
participate in your own rescue.
Yeah.
It's nobody's coming to save you, nobody's coming to fix you, nobody gives a shit about your problems or my problems or Chunky's problems, and they're glad we all have them. So at the end of the day, if the person is taking care of themselves, exhibiting good self-care, give them the opportunity. If they're not, if they're inconsistent, it's like I wouldn't get involved with them because it only gets worse with age if they don't manage it properly.
Yeah, it's all, you could tell if someone's being very aware of their self-care and being aware of taking their meds as they should. It just shows their determination and strength, as unlike someone who isn't organized or isn't disciplined enough. So it that says a lot about the person. So I will definitely tell you that.
Yeah, my mom was undisciplined. She did not like the way the drugs she was on made her feel, and she felt she could just wean herself off of them and slowly stop taking them, and she would be fine. And every time she would get to the point where she wasn't on them anymore, about 3 to 4 weeks, she would just go off the deep end and she'd hop in the car and take off. And, the police would find her like a week later, with her hair, she hadn't showered or bathed or anything, just roaming the streets. She would like abandon the car somewhere and just be walking around roaming the neighborhood. And then we wouldn't know where she was. And then we would get a call. And then she would get Baker acted, put in the mental institution, forcibly medicated again. She'd get back to normal. She would laugh about, oh, when I was loony, she would say those things. But my dad would give her the medication. She would put it in her mouth, and she learned to hide the pills somehow, even when she stuck her tongue out and everything, for him to verify that she swallowed it. And it just, it became a game of cat and mouse. And after 15, 20 years, because every time she went off her meds, she would get angrier and meaner and more threatening when she was off her meds each time it would happen. And when you're constantly going in a mental hospital and you're in there for a week or 10 days, that it gets really extremely expensive.
And it's just as worse too.
Yeah, and then eventually she just kicked my dad out, told me to get out, or I told you to leave, and he was like, I've had enough. We paid her bills, and until she passed away, and it's like couldn't really do anything to help her because the laws had changed too. We couldn't just get her Baker acted anymore. The way the laws changed, because this was, I think it was the ACLU got the laws changed, and so what they would do is they would send 3 doctors out, and so all 3 doctors had to agree that she was either a danger to herself, meaning she was going to commit suicide or self harm, or she was a danger, meaning she was threatening other people. And in that case, they could Baker act her. And so the doctors would come out and they would go, well, she's definitely crazy. She definitely needs to be in an institution, but she's not threatening to harm herself. She's not threatening to harm anybody else. And so they wouldn't do anything. There was nothing we could do. And then the last time I saw her, she was really angry, really bitter. I think my visit lasted about 3 minutes before she kicked me out. And, she started talking about how, there's nothing wrong with me, and, you and your father and your brother all committed me, and there was nothing wrong. And I just said to her, so you don't think that you had any kind of illness? Or she's like, no. And she said, you tell that no good father of yours, if he ever shows his face around here, I'll put a bullet in his brain. She said that. And, we had guns growing up in the house. There was a .22 revolver, and after she had passed away, she had loaded it. And so I didn't feel safe around my mother, even though she was like 5 foot nothing, like 110 pounds. I didn't feel safe being around her because she was mentally ill. I didn't know what she was going to do. I was like, man, at that point, I've been dealing with that for close to 2 decades. And it's like, this is how she wants to live her life. And we'll pay her bills. We'll send her part of the money from the business. And, she lived out her life.
I totally understand that there's people out there that don't believe in taking medications or they just don't like it. But the thing is that for some people, depending on their situation, their circumstances, they do need to take their meds.
Yeah, the schizophrenics, what's interesting is they tend to think there's nothing wrong with them and everybody else is crazy. But people that are, like my dad had a fiance that was a manic depressive. And so she had tried to commit, she was like, she was 54, 55, I think. And she had tried to, from the time she was 21 until she was like 54, 55, she tried to commit suicide 4 different times in her life. And so she was on antidepressants. And, my dad and her were eating pretty healthy. They were exercising. She's like, I feel great. And so she stopped taking her meds again. Tried to commit suicide. She did permanent makeup. And so the anesthesiology that they would use, it was like a topical thing. She had a bunch of bottles and she drank them all. My dad went over and all the bottles were empty. And because she wasn't answering the phone, he was like, what's going on? He saw the empty bottles and he's like, what happened? Why are these all empty bottles here? And she says, I drank them. and she had basically tried to commit suicide. So he called an ambulance. They came over. They pumped her stomach. She got institutionalized for, I don't know, 7, 10 days or whatever, and got back on her antidepressant meds. And then I think it was like 2, 3 weeks later, we had Christmas. We all celebrated together. Her, my dad. She had a daughter. It was a teenage daughter at the time. I think she was like 16, 17, or maybe she was 18. And we had a nice Christmas together. And then, like 2 days later, I got a call from my dad saying that she had killed herself. She'd hung herself. And so I think it was the fifth try she was successful at offing herself. So it was because she went off her meds. She didn't take them.
Medications really do make a big difference. It can be a hassle for some people because obviously you have to be very disciplined and take them at a certain time that you're supposed to take them, but it really does make a difference. It's a small step that leads to a big difference. This is a little irrelevant in terms of the medications, but it did open my eyes as to how important it is to take care of yourself, especially as you get older. So I have a family member. I'm not going to say type of family member in particular, but I have a family member who is currently in their 60s and they're suffering from dementia. In their case, it has nothing to do with the medications per se, but rather the stuff that they went through growing up, and it has become a big factor in the way that they've functioned in their life. And going into an assisted living facility really does change your life. It was my first time was last year when they got kind of recently admitted to a assisted living facility, and it just I have personally never stepped into a mental institution, but I know for sure that this might have some slight differences, but it's definitely an eye opener. Me, I'm very sensitive to certain environments personally, but when I've walked in there, maybe I'd say the first 30 minutes or an hour, you encounter a lot of people with a lot of mental illness, and I don't know how the nurses do it. I can't imagine how difficult that job is, and the nurses there just have very thick skin. After like 30 minutes to an hour into being inside that assisted living facility, I literally ran out of the building crying because it was really a lot. Again, everyone's different. In my case, like I said, I'm very sensitive to certain environments, but it's a really scary thing. And I'm not saying to go into one and experience it yourself, but certain experiences in life really do teach you. It's super important to really take care of yourself. There's a lot of people that they're like, I'm here for a good time, not a long time, but the universe has different plans for everyone. Not everyone's gonna be living past a certain age, or maybe they'll live to be 100, which is why you might as well just take care of yourself while you're still alive, because you really never know.
The overwhelming majority of people do not. They won't work out, they won't exercise, they won't eat a good diet. And, I'm 52 now and I've lost a lot of friends. I've had friends like when we got into our late 30s, early 40s, they were dropping dead of heart attacks or got cancers or had weird type of illnesses that took them out. I had a couple good friends that we were 21, 22 years old. I went to high school with that. Like I remember one of them, we had seen her out just having a few drinks together, and then like 4 or 5 days later, I hear that she was dead. I was like, "What?" She went diving. I think like literally the day after I had seen her, and she got some kind of bacteria or infection in her ear or something, and it spread to her brain, and in a matter of days, and she was dead. She was 21 years old.
And it's definitely easier said than done, but at least make some kind of effort. Like I've mentioned, a small step makes a huge difference. At least try.
I had a friend that died in 2017. Good looking dude. All girls loved him. Your dad was a friend of his as well. And it was our friend Jimmy. And guy always drank a lot, always partied a lot, and he never got out of that lifestyle. And he ended up going home drunk one night, and I think he passed out, fell on the floor, smacked his head, had a seizure, and basically died. He was 47 years old. He was fat and bald by that point, but when we were 21, 22, when I got him the job working at Chuck's Steakhouse with us, blonde hair, blue eyes, he was ripped. Girls just loved him. He was fun. But as he got older and he got fat and he got bald, he always talked like, he ate like shit. He didn't exercise, didn't take care of himself, talked about himself like he was a loser, and it shortened his life. This is a very positive video.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a great aunt who lived to be 100. She died due to COVID complications, but like literally in her case, she's gone through a lot of crazy shit growing up. And I had to ask her because she literally lived to be 100. And I told her, "What's your secret to living a long life?" And she told me, "You just got to take it easy in life. Don't let things get to you." She was really mentally strong. She's dealt with abuse. She's dealt with a lot of stuff, and she is pretty strong.
Being happy, laughing a lot, having a life that's more kind of easygoing, not full of stress, not a crazy 9 to 5 job where you're dealing with 2 hours of traffic each way, sitting there bumper to bumper, kind of like you see the stuff in LA. It's like people subject themselves to that. That shit shortens your life, man. Getting up every day and going to a job you hate, that shortens your life. Eating a crappy diet, that shortens your life. Being stressed out all the time, or making a bad choice for who you choose to spend your life with. Like, I had one of my friends in Orlando was a cardiologist, and this, I don't know, 6-8 years ago, we were talking. I said, because people come to him because they had a heart attack or a stroke. I said, like, what is the age when people come to you and they've had a heart attack or stroke or whatever, and they're like, what do I need to do? I'll diet, I'll exercise. What do I need to do, doc? And where is the cutoff for the people who are like, I don't give a fuck, just give me the pill? And he said 75% of the people 55 and under will change their diet, exercise, cut out the things that cause the problems. But 75% of the people that are 55 and over, it's like, whatever reason, that age, 55, is just, they're phoning it in from that point. They want to be comfortable. They don't want to suffer. They'd rather just take a pill. They're not interested in green juice or going to the gym or healthy diet or detoxing their body or anything.
Yeah, like I said, like, you never know where life is going to take you, and death is definitely inevitable. But like I said, like, you don't know if you're going to live to be 30, you're going to live to be 70, 80. So you might as well just take care of yourself.
It depends on your life path.
Yeah.
When your time's up, it is up. There's lots of times on Twitter I'll share videos, and you'll see some dude riding a bike and 3 cars just go, one of them barrel rolls over him or whatever, and he's totally unscathed. When you see something like that, you're like, his time wasn't up. He was standing in the only place you could stand and not get killed. Whether it's a train or car wrecks, it's like, I see those videos all the time. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that goes to show that it's not his time yet. He has a lot more to do in his life, so.
It was like Jennifer and her best friend from high school. They were riding home from a party, and the guy driving the pickup truck, they were, all the girls and the other friends were sitting in the back. Dude wrecked the car spun around, and Jen got messed her knees up, but her best friend, the car rolled over and killed her, and she was literally sitting right next to her.
Wow. Yeah.
Jen went flying, her friend went flying as well, but
oh my God.
The car rolled over and crushed her, killed her instantly.
Wow. So
she was 18, 19 years old. That was her best friend she grew up with.
Wow.
All right.
This has been a real positive film session here.
Yeah.
All righty, boys.
I think it is something we have to address to the audience too. Like, that's, for me, it hits home to me personally. So that's why I wanted to get the message out that, it is people we didn't ask for it, we are trying our best. But it's like he said, if you don't discipline yourself, don't play victim of, I'm anxious, I have depression.
Actually, I like that.
Because I know people that are like that.
They just use an excuse, and they just use it. They never get past it. They're always like, oh, this gives me an excuse not to reach my full potential.
I have friends that are like that. And, like, I understand them because I go through it too. But you're not helping yourself saying that you're this, and that.
It becomes their story.
Yourself.
People will act consistently with how they view themselves to be. And it doesn't matter whether the view is accurate or not.